Hello, my name is Greta Harrison. Welcome to Born Fabulous Podcast Season 3, Episode 29. The theme of this season is young adults with intellectual disabilities living full lives of independence and interdependence. Work is an integral part of a full life in independence. This is the second of 3 episodes featuring Jamie Minotti and Mark McLary, who are co-founders and managing partners of My Yard Live Beer Company in San Marcos, California, which is a suburb of San Diego. My Yard Live has a unique mission. Their mission seeks to create a sustainable family-friendly refuge with activities for all ages, live entertainment, quality food and libations, as well as unique leisure games with a focus on building a stronger community. Their mission further states they will create a paradigm shift in the way that communities interact, play, and bond by inventing an inclusive family and adult-friendly gathering space that has the ability to be replicated in the Western United States and beyond. This mission organically led to the hire of James Zoul when My Yard Live opened in 2019, months before the COVID pandemic hit. James has Down syndrome. James's job grew over his years with My Yard Live, eventually leading to the unique addition of the 4 dudes and their mission. The 4 dudes are James and 3 of his close friends who have disabilities. This particular episode will share the wonderful story of the 4 dudes. Now please enjoy this clip of The Ring. The lyrics are by Melissa Riggio, who was the focus of episodes 1 through 4 in season 1. She had Down syndrome. The music and voice are by Rachel Fuller.
And so I came back to the center of the ring. Am I just a broken angel? God has sent me here to heal, to be an ordinary woman.
Okay, so James started with the cleaning duties, worked his way up. He had a job coach when he came to you, correct? And how did the idea of the 4 dudes happen? Just talk that through.
Wow, that's like a really good question, Mark. I don't even remember. I don't remember how did it come about?
I think that I heard that, saw the term earlier, organic. It happened organically, and I think you and I were kind of spitballing, and you kind of brought it up. I mean, you've talked a lot. I'm talking to Jamie now, and talked a lot about something project based related to beer outside of directly what we do that gives back to the community. And so I think that's how the conversation started with the 4 dudes. Let's do it's almost and these conversations quickly went to June, right? And it was let's develop a brand within the brand. And that's kind of how the 4 dudes was created.
And I know we've been really sensitive about I'm trying to think of a good way to put this. Our intention has never been to kind of exploit this idea of, hey, look at us, look at the great things we're doing, and guess what? We employ people with special needs, and blah blah blah. Like that we've been really, really sensitive because we've found a passion for it, and our team has found a passion for it. But we wanted to always make sure that passion's not projected as exploitation of what we're trying to do and our reasoning behind it and that kind of thing. And so when Mark said we really quickly brought it to June, because June's like our barometer, right? June is like, we're like, we got to bounce things off June. Like, does this make sense? Is this cool? Are we using the right terminology? Is it okay to asked James to be on social media and like, you know, be a part because other team members are on social media and that kind of thing. And so we're very sensitive about it. And so as with the four dudes, we wanted to create this concept with the four dudes that was valuable to the four dudes, which is James and his three other, you know, lifelong friends, valuable to them in that experience first and foremost, but then also creating something that could give back to the community. So it's like, cool, these guys with special needs are brewing beer, great, but what else? Like, what bigger piece is it? What more do the four dudes have kind of involved in that? And so that's where we kind of came up with the idea, and I think it was with June, to create a fund where the four dudes, $1 from every pint sold of all the beer that the guys brew would go into a fund that they in turn can make a donation to the greater community for a cause or causes that they were interested in. So that's the piece that I think is as cool as the concept itself. Is just, you know, the dude's ability to like give back to a community that, like, I think in the community's mind, right? And we're talking about stereotypes. The community's mind to a certain extent is people in need, whatever those people in need are, right? And I put it in quotation marks, right? People are in need, like we're giving to people in need, right? We're contributing to people in need. We're donating to people in need. And that could be people of lower socioeconomic status. That could be with people of special needs. That could be whomever. You know, it's we're giving. Well, this flips that on its ass. Flips it on its butt. Now the stereotypical takers are now the givers. And that, for me and for us, is the big thing about Four Dudes Brew. It's now the dudes have that empowerment to now give back to the community that has so generously given to them their entire lives. And that as part of the Four Dudes project, in you know, whoever you talk to, June, the guys or whatever, that's like the coolest thing.
Well,
And they've given like $12,000 back already, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
and I think it's worth noting the name, the Four Dudes, that actually came from James and his three buddies call themselves the Dudes. So that's where the name actually came from. They're also the marketing team too. So, you know, and, you know, and to kind of further to Jamie's point, you know, kind of flipping the script, right? Now, you know, when we release these beers, you know, we host these huge events, you know, promoting the whatever beer we've released. We have the organizations come in that they're donating to, and we bring the dudes up on stage, and, you know, and literally put a light on them, stage lighting, you know, and just highlight, like, hey, look at these heroes, look what they're doing for the community, you know.
I love that. And also, as somebody who is a parent and a civic leader in my area, you're also expanding the vision of what somebody with a disability can do. They can do all the jobs in your business, including brewing a beer, which that's why Born Fabulous podcast exists, is we're trying to break the stereotypes and broaden what people with disabilities can do. And that's why I wanted to talk to you guys, because you were doing that. You know, I love that James started where he did and worked his way up, and now he's brewing beer. I don't know a lot of people who know how to brew beer. It's not easy to do. It's a complicated process. And I don't think that, from what I've heard of the story, they didn't start the brewing the entire beer from day one. They were mentored and they were part of other teams, and then they grew into the process, correct?
Yeah.
Is that how it worked?
So, Ben, aka Shaggy, everyone calls him Shaggy. He's our head brewer, and he's a saint. And so from day one, they were involved in the process from beginning to end, which
Oh,
included bringing out several types of hops and having the dudes smell each of the hops and pick which ones they really liked. And so they were involved from the beginning to end, and then picking the hops to ultimately picking the style of beer and then brewing it from the beginning until end. So
and they, as each batch, they've had what, 3 batches now, or is it 4 batches?
4.
4 batches. Okay,
4, and we're going on our 5th.
We're going on our 5th, yeah.
I'm going to be there for one of those. I'm
You
going to
better.
be there for one of those events where they launch it to the community. But anyways, when that batch happens, their involvement with each batch has grown, hasn't it? Like what they're doing in the process has grown. They're doing more and more each time. And now, if I'm not mistaken, they've been entered in some competitions, at least one. Can you talk about that?
And Shaggy, Mark referenced Shaggy. So Shaggy, our brewery, has been with us since 2019. And I remember this, when we brought him this idea, his first inclination, and it had nothing to do with working with folks with special needs. It had nothing to do with anything. It had to do with, if they're going to be involved in this thing, they're going to be involved in this thing. And I don't want just whoever it is just to be involved in this thing on the surface. And he's held true to that and developed really tight bonds. The guys walk in, the 4 dudes walk in, they don't want to see Mark and I, they want to see Shaggy, because that's their man now. And so their involvement from the very beginning was kind of understanding, what are the ingredients in beer, just like anybody else, right? Just like you or me or Mark or whomever. What are the ingredients? What are the smells? What do the different hops mean? And what are those tastes? And what's the beer that we're trying to brew? And funny story, Nick, one of the 4 dudes, the first beer we brewed was an IPA, and IPAs are really big on the West Coast, one of the biggest selling beers. So they went through the whole process of picking the hops and the malt and all this stuff. And so fast forward, the beer is brewed, and I have one of the San Diego Union Tribune wanted to do an article. And so Pam from the San Diego Union Tribune is out here, and the beer's released, and she's asking about the beer, and she goes around and she asks Nick, and she says, "What do you think about the beer?" And Nick goes, "I don't like it." And she's like, "What do you mean? What do you mean you don't like it?" There's a hush. All the parents are there. The whole thing's a hush. Everyone looks. He's like, "I don't like it. I don't like IPAs." And she's like, "Well, what kind of beers do you like?" And he says, "Mexican lagers. I like Mexican lagers." So the next beer we did was a Mexican lager. And so that's how the guys have input on this process, and they have, and they will continue to be. So,
and they're very honest.
Yeah. Honesty. Yeah. I was going to say the Mexican lager is called Cuatro Amigos.
Oh, I love it. That's great.
And that was actually the beer. That was actually the beer that got entered into the awards in competition. And again, that was Shaggy bringing that to us and kind of saying, "Hey, listen, we're going to do it. I'm super proud of this. The guys are super proud of this, and we're going to do it. Everybody should know about it." And so he actually took it upon himself, with the approval of the dudes, to put it into the competition.
And I don't think that's going to be the last time. I think that's going to happen again. Correct?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the sky, what you're showing is that you're not only breaking stereotypes, but the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. We don't know what the future is going to hold. I think that's so great.
And I think, to a certain extent, ignorance is bliss in a certain way, because we say the sky is the limit, and you work in June, and everybody kind of works in I'm gonna say the industry, but works in the area of employment with folks with special needs and the whole thing. Mark and I don't know, we don't know any different, right? We don't know what those limitations are, right? There's no stigma amongst us of what that is, and where the dudes can go and where James can go and where RC can go and what they can do. And so for us, it's just kind of taking it day by day and kind of building on strengths and supporting weaknesses and providing resources where we can. And to be honest with you, it's no different than anything we do with anybody else on the team. If there's a challenge, we sit down and we have a discussion. If there's something that we've reached, a goal that we've reached, we have a celebration. And it's like everything else we do. And so ignorance is bliss in that way for us, and not kind of knowing what those limitations are, and just, like we've always done, just kind of stretching things as far as we can stretch them and make the connections where we can make them.
The world needs to clone all of you. We need more employers like you.
I don't know about that. Talk to my wife about cloning me.
Well, with 2 kids, you probably would like to clone each other at times.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking about the jobs and how you've broken stereotypes, I'm thinking about this conversation, and when I just kind of estimate, if you've got 30 employees, you've got 2 or 3 people with disabilities that are directly employed by you, but you have maybe 3, 4 others who rotate in and out through high school agreements and programs that you have, maybe through pre-ets or something like that. So let's just come up with a number of 6, just to be an average. 6 out of 30 is 20%. And that is a perfect inclusive average. And I'm bringing that up because, like you alluded to earlier, sometimes people will hire one person and say, oh, look what I did, and I've got this one person, and then that's it. Or they go to the other extreme and they only hire people with disabilities. And I understand why that happens, because the job market is so tough for them. But that's exclusionary in a different way. So what we strive for in school and in life is proportionate inclusion. And you are organically providing proportionate, inclusive work experiences, or I should really say proportionate, inclusive employment. And you should really be applauded for that. I know that has just happened to you because you're doing the right thing and you do things the right way. But just statistically, when I'm looking at it, it's wonderful. It's perfect.
I think more important for us than the number is meaningful employment. And like I said, with James in particular, when challenges, it's not all the roses and buttercups. Challenges come up like any other person has personal issues and things of that nature, and those things come up and they come into work and there's challenges, and like I said, he's dragging and he's doing things. Those are things that we address, and it's not only Mark and I, but it's our team who sees it and wants to address it, because it's beyond the number of people that are here, but how meaningful their time is here. And we want to make sure that it's meaningful. And candidly, I'd rather employ less people with disabilities, but it be more meaningful employment than the role reversal. But we are striving to do more. So Mark and I just wrote a grant to the Department of Rehabilitation to enhance not only our employment, but also our training program is associated with what we do here. And so hopefully, and fingers crossed, we'll hear back here in January on whether or not we can kind of further build this thing to kind of the infrastructure of what we're trying to do to formalize it a little bit more.
Well, I want to ask you about that, because one of my questions was if you had any suggestions for job supports, whether they be external or internal in general. And the Department of Rehabilitative Services is where most states, that's the central organizing agency for that. And you're just saying you wrote a grant for that. And I love
Yeah.
that. Again,
Yeah.
you're out of the box here. And I like that.
Yeah, so this grant was to the Department of Rehabilitation, and like Jamie mentioned, the grant, what it in the entirety of the grant is part of it is actually giving us the ability to maybe start to get the tools we need to do some of the training more in-house, where in the past we have worked with nonprofits that bring kids in that we can work with, and this grant might give us the ability to get more educated on how to do some of this in-house, as well as one of the goals in there is to increase. So we work with nonprofits that bring kids in, and then we actually have three or two that we directly have hired now, Jamie. Two, right?
Sure.
So part of that grant proposal was increasing that number a bit, where we can actually increase bringing in employees with disabilities, that kind of increase that number from 2 to whatever that number is, 2 to 4, anything to increase that percentage, but in, like you're saying, in a very you put it more eloquently, it's in a balanced way.
I'm very, very impressed that you've applied for this grant, and I applaud the move towards employers having a little more control and taking more control of how they train their employees. And I think the Department of Rehabilitative Services would be very on board with that. I don't see why they wouldn't. So I think that's great. And I hope the people out there all jump on this bandwagon, because that's a very good direction to take. Very, very good. So personally, you've talked about how James has affected the business and his positive spillover effect on the other employees. Is that a good way to put it? How has he affected you personally?
I told Jamie the story the other day. I mentioned my sister-in-law who has Down syndrome. Well, she's out in Texas, and my I'm in a blended family. So my wife, 2 kids from her previous and 2 from my previous, and we were married 10 years ago, or been together for 10 years, married 8 years ago. So I started to get to know Bryn, that's her sister, my sister-in-law, over the last 10 years. And recently, the whole family came out. My wife's whole family, who's my family, of course, comes out. And they're staying at the house. And, for me, I'm having just a normal conversation with Bryn, just like I would with James or anyone else that works here. And her parents kept saying, "You're just so good with Bryn." And in my mind, I'm thinking, and I'm sure the reason they're saying this is because of what they dealt with Bryn her entire life, where there is just people out there that are for some reason uncomfortable around people with disabilities. And in my mind, I was like, well, I'm just being me. But I'm sure I'm just being me, but I'm sure, like, just being around James for as long as I have, that definitely had to play into it. So that's kind of how I would define that.
You're not uncomfortable. She's just like anybody else, and you're talking to her like she's anybody else and giving her the dignity of that respect.
Exactly.
And James, how about you? Or Jamie? I'm sorry, I got James and Jamie mixed up here. Jamie,
Yeah.
how about you?
James and Kristen and Jim and June and Shauna, who's recently passed, has just, they've become family.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know any other way to put it, and it's that those people that you meet in the rarity of your life, that you connect with, and kind of they understand you and you understand them, and special needs aside and in independent living or whatever, all those things aside, it's just they're just good people that we've developed a really, really close relationship with. And not only the family themselves, but also LifeWorks, who supports Kristen and James, and Beth Gallagher has become a mentor to me. And we talk all the time. She was in last week and we were talking about a variety of things. And so, just the relationship and the network that it's created. And, I wish there's more of that in the world to be able to do. So.
I love that.
Yeah, June arguably might be the best hugger in the world, actually.
Yeah.
She is a very, very wonderful soul. And speaking of June, who is James's mother, I said it in her interview, but it's worth repeating again. Her example of reaching out to you with that letter, with that email, made a huge difference in everybody's life. And if she had not sat down to do this, we wouldn't be here today. The four dudes wouldn't exist. James wouldn't have his job, his dream job. None of that would exist. But she just made the move. I know a lot of parents who won't do that, either because they're shy or for many other reasons. But sometimes you just have to, again, think out of the box, and you have to do that. You can't just depend on the Department of Rehabilitative Services to do everything and be able to find every single person a job. Each counselor has thousands of people on their caseload. So the fact that she did that, I applaud her for that.
The ripple effect, right?
It's the ripple effect. And yeah, I'm glad that you brought her up. Thank you for listening to episode 29 of Born Fabulous Podcast's third season. This was the second of 3 episodes with Jamie Minotti and Mark McLary. When hearing any dates or promotions mentioned, please keep in mind that this interview was recorded in the fall of 2023. Short video clips from most episodes are available on our YouTube channel and on bornfabulouspodcast.com. You can also hear all released episodes on Born Fabulous Podcast on YouTube now. I adore and am grateful to every single young adult and parent featured in Season 3. But the next episode, number 30, is my favorite of the whole season. You will hear Jamie and Mark share their thoughts on truly inclusive employment, how we can help shift employers' visions to include disability, and much more. Their thoughts are profound, so much so that they clearly show a better world for everyone. If only we could open our minds. The employment rate for individuals with intellectual disabilities has always been historically low. Visionary business missions, mindsets, cultures, and leadership like those of My Yard Live Beer Company are so welcome. Our world certainly needs more entrepreneurs like them. Please follow and like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review wherever you heard this podcast. Now please enjoy this clip of The Ring. The lyrics are by Melissa Riggio, who was the focus of Season 1, Episodes 1 through 4. She had Down syndrome. The music and voice are by Rachel Fuller.